This is why I would never have a long distance relationship. If you have one of those, congratulations. I was in a long distance relationship and this guy had a whole ass girlfriend and I didn't know anything about it. So I met this guy on Tinder. Yes, I know. Again, Tinder. Girl, like, give it a break. Yes. Met this guy on Tinder. Super sweet. He lived in New York. I was living in Dominican Republic at the time. And we were talking for a good 7 months, like on the phone, FaceTime calls every single night. Mind you, I was doing some charity work because he wasn't looking too good, you know? Here's the thing that really got me. I had his Instagram, I had his Facebook, any social media you can probably think of back then, I had it. So we were talking, we were like, oh my God, like we really wanted to see each other. And I'm like, you know, I'll have to go to New York or you can come here and, you know, we can get to know each other. Well, because of his work, he couldn't go and visit me. So, you know, we ended up getting a plane ticket. He bought me the plane ticket. Yes, thank you. I'm very grateful. Bought me the plane ticket for exactly 9 days. He wanted me to stay at his house, but I was like, no, you know, I'll stay in a hotel. You know, because you can't, even though we were getting to know each other for 7 months, I can't just like go to his house. So he got me a hotel for 9 days. He's like, I'll pay for it. He was like, I will pay for it because it's an inconvenience for you. And I was like, okay. So I get to New York. I'm at the airport. I had to wait for him at the airport for about 3 hours. No, not even kidding. So mind you, I am coming from Dominican Republic. I don't have Uber. I didn't have the Uber app at all. So I'm like, you know what? I'll download the Uber app. I tell him I'll just order an Uber and, you know, we can go for dinner or I'll see you tomorrow because it was like 8 p.m. Refused to let me take an Uber. He's like, a lady like you shouldn't be taking an Uber. I'm on my way right now. I'm so sorry. I got caught up at work. So fast forward, we go out to dinner that night. We didn't even go to the hotel yet. We go out to dinner and I'm like, okay, well, I'm very exhausted. So I get to my hotel room. He's like, I am going to go home. We can go spend the day tomorrow. I'll be off, but I have to go home because I've been working for too long and I have a cat at home. And I'm like, okay, you know, whatever. We make out, whatever. I still haven't slept with him yet. Let me just say this. I have family in New York. So for what's coming, I have family in New York. So next day he picks me up super early. We go out, we have breakfast. He takes me to Times Square. It was my first time in Times Square. And he keeps on getting this call from this girl. Let's call her D. And you know, I'm thinking I'm his girlfriend. I'm the person that he's seeing. So I'm like, who is D? And he keeps on like declining the call. And mind you, it's connected to his car. So he's like, oh, D is my sister. And I'm like, okay. So it's nighttime. We end up going back to his house. You know, we do the deed. So he's like, I want to show you around my house. He had his like own house. He had a pool and he's showing me around his house. And then there's like this like down area. I'm not going to say it's a basement because it's kind of like open, but there's like women's clothes in trash bags. Like, not gonna lie, there was like at least 10 trash bags with like women's clothes and it was like all coming out. It wasn't like tied together. There was purses, shoes, clothes, everything. And so I'm like, whose women's clothes are these? And he's like, oh, that's my sister's. She got a divorce and she didn't have any space in the new apartment that she moved in. So she left some clothes here. I had a gut feeling that he was lying to me. And I'm like, okay, well, I want to go back to like my hotel. I kid you not, next day, someone's like knocking on my hotel door. And I'm like, hello? And this woman is like, he has a girlfriend. And I'm like, I'm sorry, who are you? Because I genuinely didn't know who this girl was. So she's like, let me guess, he paid for your hotel, you saw the clothes in his basement, he told you it was his sister's that got divorced, and I'm like, my jaw was on the floor, bitch. So she's like, yeah, he does that, I'm not his sister, I'm actually his girlfriend, and you're not the first one. And in my head, I'm like, girl, so if I'm not the first one, what are you doing here? So I'm like, well, I have him on Facebook and I never saw like anything about you. And she's like, he always opens a new account, a new Facebook, a new Instagram just to talk with girls. So the last thing she said, she was like, just enjoy your time here. So that's what I did. I went out with my cousins and my uncles and stuff in New York. And that is why I will never have a long distance relationship. I'm married now either way, but good luck to you guys.
I told my daughter that I'm not visiting her in the hospital. I don't care if it's Christmas, but now I think I regret it. My 39 female daughter, 16 female, has had a sensitive stomach ever since she was a kid.
Hot girl tummy issue.
There are certain foods that will upset her stomach to the point where she's unable to stop throwing up. We've seen countless doctors, but so far nobody's been able to give us a clear answer. The only advice we keep getting is to identify the trigger foods and cut them out of her diet. We have a pretty good idea of what the foods are: soda, chips, Cheetos, similar processed snacks, and anything oily or fried.
Those are my main food groups.
Delish. Now, unfortunately, this is exactly the kind of stuff that my daughter loves to eat the most. And as horrible as my daughter feels after she eats them, she still refuses to cut them out of her diet, which in turn leads to her spending a ton of time in the hospital for the past several years.
Yeah, you got to cut it out, man.
Now, when she was little, it was easier to keep the foods away from her because I simply wouldn't buy them. But now that she's older, I can't always be there to check what she eats. She eats the greasy pizza at her school's cafeteria. She trades her lunch with her roommates. She goes out with her friends and she stops to eat a KFC and on and on. And it always ends with her in the ER crying and shaking because she can't stop throwing up. This was the case on Christmas Eve as well. So on Christmas, we had our whole family gathered at our place. And of course, among the many dishes at our Christmas table, there were some of her main trigger foods. The trigger foods at the table were things like chips, soda, chocolates, and sweets. Chocolate! Now, mind you, these were far from the only foods available to her. We also had a variety of home-cooked traditional dishes on the table and ingredients that don't upset her stomach, like vegetables, meat, dairy, etc. All of the meals were delicious and well seasoned. My daughter herself says that she really likes most of these dishes. But Sam,
what?
Despite this, my daughter chooses to eat nothing but her trigger foods.
Nothing?
So I reminded her the foods would make her feel awful, but she said she didn't care, for a good reason, because Christmas is only once a year and she just wants to live a little. As you might have guessed, this ended up with her violently puking all over the place in the ER a few hours later. She had to be hospitalized for a few days and only just got out of the hospital a few hours before I wrote this. And unlike all of the previous times when something like this happened, this time I chose to spend my Christmas relaxing at home with the rest of our family and not in the hospital by my daughter's side. I kept in touch with her through calls and texts and told her that if she needed anything, I would ask a family member to bring it to her, but I made it clear that I would not be visiting her during her stay. And my daughter didn't take it too well. She cried every time we talked on the phone and begged me to come over and told me how horrible I was for, quote, abandoning her there all alone and so on. Most of our family didn't take my side in this either. And during the past few days, I got called everything from a little extreme to downright cruel and heartless. So, am I the a-hole?
Talked about how I've had 20 jobs, right? And objectively, all of them sucked balls. This is the job that I worked for the shortest amount of time and quit the fastest. Applebee's. If you've ever worked at Applebee's, you probably know. It was in my first semester of my first year of college, and I wanted to get a serving job so I could pay my rent. I applied for this job online, right? And I get called back within like literally a couple hours of applying online. And they just ask me if I want to do an interview. Go in for this interview and I'm being interviewed by this guy. And he tells me he doesn't even work at this location, but the location has no employees. So he has to cover. Red flag. If anyone ever tells you that, don't get the job. I get hired right on the spot. And honestly, I was like, yeah, they must have just loved me. But no, they clearly just needed employees that bad. He tells me, come in tomorrow for your first day of training and you'll have a week of training. Each day of training, you get a free meal. Yay. I go in the next day for my first shift and I'm training with this one girl who's supposed to be teaching me how to serve. This girl was like close to my age, right? So I thought we were gonna vibe. I thought we were gonna be cool, but immediately I just knew that we were not like similar types of people. She was very hateful and rude. It was honestly just like weird and we were not vibing. And then all of a sudden she sees the wallpaper on my phone, which was of my boyfriend at the time. Like telling me about how she's hooking up with this guy across the street who works at this other restaurant that's right by us. And then sees my boyfriend on my phone and says, he is so hot. Do you care if I steal him? I was just like, no, if you can get him, you can have him. But what the fuck? This girl's just telling me her whole life. She's telling me all the things she's addicted to. She's telling me about her situationship. And then in the middle of our shift, she checks her phone and starts crying. Asks me if I can cover all the tables and then just leaves leaves and doesn't tell anyone, and I'm just floundering like, I don't know anything, actually. Finally, my break comes up, which they try to not give me because it was so busy, but I'm like, babe, I haven't ate. I'm starving. Like, I need a break. My free food, and I was like, okay, I could probably do this for one more day, so I go in the next day. Say, I'm not training with that same girl. I'm training with the get ready for it. You already know if you've worked in the restaurant industry. I'm training with the old lady who's been there way too long and hates her fucking life. First, I thought, again, she was gonna be cool. Like, she seemed like she was kind of down to earth. I thought we were gonna get along. Literally hated me. She told me she didn't want me to get in her way and to just fold silverware for the whole shift, and then kept getting calls from her kids. She was getting like 40 calls a minute from her kids, them just asking her, like, what are you doing? Like, what's going on? So I kind of understood why she was pissed off, and I just let it rock. And then out of nowhere, just like the day before, the girl says to me she has to leave to go take care of her kids, and I need to take care of all of her tables for her. I was like, right. Well, can you at least stay until I take a break and eat some food? Because the only thing that is making me happy right now is the fact that I'm about to get free fucking food. When I go into the kitchen to grab my food for my break, this guy literally asked me if I want to buy a certain type of drug off of him. Which, like, it's kitchen people, right? But no, like, this was, like, triggering for whatever reason. I go sit down with my food, and I'm texting my boyfriend. I'm just saying, like, I'm about to cry. Like, this is so overwhelming. This is my second day, and it's been the worst experience ever. Like, I really just want to walk out. My boyfriend at the time was just like, dude, you should just walk out. And I was like, okay. I literally just walked out and never came back for my break, and I don't give a fuck if that girl got to go home to her kids or not. I really don't. Plus, like, it wasn't an emergency. Her kids were, like, fighting at the house. Like, come on. No, come on. And that is how I learned that I'm just, like, not cut out for the restaurant industry at all. It takes a certain breed of person to be able to do the restaurant industry, and I'm not one of them.
Am I the dookie shoot for causing my coworker to lose a $500 tip? I am currently in my senior year of college. I'm working a serving job at a mid-level restaurant. The bill's typically $100 for drinks, food, appetizers, and dessert for 2 people. I have been working here for 10 months. My parents usually come in every Friday with my uncle and aunt. They are usually sat in my section and they tip me extremely well. $200 bill and $100 tip, just because they're my family. My manager has no issue with this as I do not give them extras or more attention. I just treat them like a normal customer. He is aware of the tip, and my parents will usually order drinks at the bar and tip the bartender as well, so they spend a lot here. He knows them and talks with them when they are here because he appreciates their business. Unfortunately, my manager is out because his wife is sick, so he is on leave for 6 months. We have a temporary manager named Barb. Barb is very strict and follows the rules. I mean, she's like a Dolores Umbridge. Barb has been here for 2 weeks and has seen my parents twice, and she asked me the second time. When I told her it was my parents, she made a weird face. I should also note I have a coworker named Tina who hates that I serve my parents and get a huge tip. She was always complaining to my old manager, but he never cared. Why would she have an issue with this? Has nothing to do with her. Cut to last Friday, my parents came in. This was essentially my cousin's engagement dinner, and also my birthday is soon, so I know they were planning on leaving me a huge tip as a present. I haven't seen my cousins or my grandpa in a while, and they were all excited to be served by me. I was talking about this all week and talking about how I knew I was getting $500 as a tip because it's my birthday soon. The hostesses know them as well and goes to sit them in my section. Barb immediately intercepts this and tells the hostess to sit them in Tina's section. Not only was this my parents, but my aunt and uncle, cousin and her boyfriend, and my grandpa. I asked Barb if I can serve my family, and she says she is sick of me being unprofessional and I am hogging the tips away from the other servers who deserve it as well. Tina sees this and is very happy. My family gets sat in her section, however my dad asks if I can serve them, but Barb says OP has some other responsibilities to tend to and wouldn't be able to give you her full attention. My parents are confused and I shrug behind my manager. My mom goes to find me halfway into their meal and I tell her what happened. Cut to the end and their bill is around $350 and Tina is left $65 as a tip. My parents leave and after the restaurant closes, Tina corners me and screams at me that I cost her $500. Barb steps in and accuses me of telling my parents not to tip Tina. I try to explain that this was a present and Barb scoffs and calls me a liar. I left and I don't work until tomorrow. I feel like an asshole because I bet she was really excited to get a huge tip. I'm afraid to go back in as people have been talking about it. Am I the asshole?
What's the worst case you've seen of someone trying to play the victim when it was all their own fault? My sister has always been a loose cannon, creating chaos wherever she goes, constantly playing the victim, and thinks the world owes her everything. Anyways, one day she called my mom claiming the place she was staying in was a cult. She also claims that she was mistreated and taken advantage of by someone and he is following her. Of course we believe her. She also claims that she's been watching by some weird government agency. After all of this, my mom says she can stay with us temporarily, and my sister says she'll be there for a maximum of 2 weeks. My mom and I were living in an apartment that had basically no space. My mom has no money at all. She is just enough for rent and food, but that's with me even chipping in some every now and then. But she is family, so I don't mind sharing my room with my sister for 2 weeks. She gets there and right away says she has no money, but but she wants a job where she has to take the turnpike to a highly populated city. So my mom gives her her change jar for transport only. Should have been about $5 per day. My sister uses 80% of my mom's change jar within a month's time. She was using it for gas, bills, food, anything and everything. Disrespectful, but nothing compared to what was to follow. Then she says I still haven't found a place to live. I need 2 more weeks. My mom agrees but says she needs to help pay bills and such. She has a fit, freaks out, says the entire family hates her. Perhaps she's just being dramatic. Mom gives her leeway on the bills until sister feels more financially sound. Then my stepdad unexpectedly passed away. My sister didn't even like my stepdad, so she's basically saying whatever, he's gone. So what? My mom is obviously torn. Her best friend and life partner passed away. So my sister goes into my mom's room 2 days after he passed away and says, "Mom, you should go into a mental hospital. You're having a psychotic break." She said this because my mom had been crying since she found out he passed. Who wouldn't be this upset? Then my sister invites her children to come and live with us. Her 12 and 9-year-old daughter and son. Where are we gonna put them? Who is gonna pay for them? She didn't even ask. Then she posted something on Instagram and it had a dirty reference. Me being the youngest commented gross lol, like I always do whenever my siblings make comments about dirty stuff. It's kind of a fun thing between us because my siblings laugh and I laugh and it lightens whatever mood. She starts acting really nasty to me, telling me my niece and nephew hate being there because of me. They don't like me. I'm making mom's life hard, etc. all because of my comment. Eventually, all hell breaks loose and my sister is screaming and fighting with my mom, telling her the nastiest stuff, refusing to leave, and literally going crazy, hitting stuff, throwing stuff, threatening to end herself, saying everyone hates her, telling my mom she was the cause of her hard life. So my mom says, "You've been here for 2 months and haven't helped with bills. You have to go." She refuses. She calls the cops, claiming we're unlawfully trying to evict her. So my mom finally just told the landlord she couldn't stay there because of my stepdad's passing and that she was leaving. We all came, packed up mom's stuff and left. I don't know where she went after that, but I haven't talked to her since. She still claims the family hates her because of me and my mom. She claims we didn't help her. She claims that the house fell apart because of me. She claims we all should have done more for her. She claims we don't love her and XYZ is why. She's the crappiest version of human I've ever come into contact with.
Here is the story time of just unnecessary crazy things that I did in my past relationships. And here's the thing. These are things I did pre-spiritual awakening. I would not be caught dead doing these things today. But when I was like 19 years old, fuck yeah, I was crazy. I also just feel like we all have those crazy relationships and those super toxic relationships that like just are really good for character development. Like if you haven't had that, fuck you, you're God's favorite and I don't want to talk to you. So my ex and I, we would like break up and make up every other day. Like, I'm not kidding you, once a week I would get hit with the block and be like, I can't do this anymore, I want nothing to do with you, like no explanation, anything, right? So it made me batshit fucking crazy. So what I decided to do was I downloaded like text free, whatever one that gave you like a fake number, and I would text him being like, hey, it's Laura, Livy's sister. Mind you, like he had my sister's number. I don't know what the fuck actually made him believe that it was my sister. I'd be like, oh my god, I heard you guys broke up, like what's wrong? Because God forbid he tells his fucking girlfriend why he broke up with her. Like I had to pretend I was my sister. Like, why'd you break up? Like, what's wrong? And every single time he would tell me everything. He'd be like, I don't know, I just get overwhelmed being in a relationship and like all these things. Like I was so fucking rude back to him. I would be like, you do realize you're a fucking adult, right? Like don't be in a relationship if you can't act like a fucking adult. And I'd be like, I'm sorry, but it's true. Like I'm just being honest, you know, like I'm not even on Livy's side, but like I'm just being honest. Like be a fucking adult. And he would be like, yeah, you know what, like you're totally right, I'm being immature right now, it's just da 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 da. So I would coach him through how to get back talking to me. He definitely had to think my sister was a massive bitch because the things that I said were so rude to him. But this worked every time without fail. He'd always be like crawling back to me and I'd be like, I don't even know if I want you back. I take him back like 2 seconds later. Funniest part about this whole thing is like I said this happened weekly, like or bi-weekly he would leave and like block me. So each bi-weekly period that he decided to leave me, I would text him as my sister and be like, hey, this is Laura, new number. He thought my sister had like 15 different phone numbers. I'm like, how fucking dumb are you, you know? This always worked 20 million times better than me calling him off star 67 like praying he'd pick up. Go to part 2.
Okay, so I was in a sorority and I basically got like kicked out. So here are some times that I've gotten in trouble. So we weren't allowed to post alcohol, which was a huge problem for me. So I made a Finsta. My name is Becca Moore. So guess what username I chose for my Finsta? Guess. Becca drinks more. And when I thought of that, I was like, I'm a genius. I was like, exec will never find that. How would they find that? You know what I mean? Here's the content I was posting. I was like, oh my god, this is awesome. I'm like Hannah Montana, you know, like a sorority girl on the outside, but Becca drinks more on the inside. You know, obviously they immediately found my Finsta. I'm an idiot and accepted every follow request because I was like, yes, this content is so good. This content's so popular. Why does everyone want to follow me right now? So yeah, all of exec requested to follow my Finsta. I was an idiot and fell for it and accepted all of their requests because I was like, oh my god, everyone wants in on this right now. I'm posting great content. I found all of my pledge classes Finstas in the comments of my Finsta post. They called an emergency chapter meeting and the president started crying in front of it. Oh my god. Oh my god. She was like, some of you even have your first and last names in your Finsta usernames. Who does that? How stupid can you guys be? I was sitting there like, their first and last names were in their username? Who would do that? But you have to admit, some names, like Becca Moore, the username gives itself, right? Becca drinks more. What else was I supposed to make it, you know? But anyone else, like, ew. Stupid. So yeah, after that we were banned from having Finstas, and if they found out we did have a Finsta, they would kick us out of the sorority. So sorry to my entire pledge class. That one was on me, if you're watching this. But obviously we all kept our Finstas and just changed the usernames. Also, when you're a freshman, you don't have memorized who's on exec and who's not. So one time I was sitting in chapter and they do this thing where they like stand up, they call your name out if you haven't been in a couple weeks or something, and then they tell you what your punishment was. So they get done calling out the names and I turned to the girl next to me, not knowing who she is, and I was like, oh my god, they didn't call my name. Looks like I'm in the clear. I haven't been to chapter in like 3 weeks. And she stands up and says, can we add Becca Moore to that list that you just called out? Because she just told me, I didn't know that she wasn't here for the last couple weeks. I was like, Hazel? Her name was Hazel. That's her real name because I don't care. Hazel? You're a snake. You're a snake. I don't even care that your name is Hazel. That's a really cute name, but you're a snake. I'm still mad about that one. So then I wasn't allowed at the next date party. What else is new? So yeah.
You guys seem to love when I talk about trash ass men in my life, so this is the story time of the trashiest ass man I ever met in my life. This guy was my childhood best friend's boyfriend actually, and he pretty much tried to ruin our friendship by being a fucking creep with me, so let's get into it. My friend had been dating this guy who like literally was dating other girls while dating her and like was gaslighting her into being literally okay with it. Like they weren't polyamorous. He just literally would be like, oh no, it's fine because I've known her for so long. And then my best friend was like, okay. We'll call this man Kenny with a K. Me and my best friend were literally up each other's ass every second of every day. Like we did every single thing together and we were planning my 16th birthday party. Being the literal menace of a child that I was, I said for my 16th birthday party, all I wanted was liquor and smoke. The herb, you know what I mean? We decided that for my birthday, we were gonna all sleep in tents. So we'd set up like 3 tents and all of us would like get drunk and then sleep in the tents, which don't do because that's illegal, but that's what we were gonna do. So Kenny was supposed to be in my tent with me because we were like the squad, right? That was like our friend group. Well, Kenny brought me like literally so much herb, it wasn't even funny, like, and strong herb. Like I didn't understand how he got this. The night was fun. Like I literally was just like on the trampoline with a few of my boyfriends at the time. And then the night ended and we had to go to our tents. Like that. I am at this point so greened out. Like I couldn't speak, couldn't move. I just went in the tent and flopped down and was out. Like literally couldn't move. For whatever godforsaken reason, in the tent, I'm laying next to Kenny and then my other best friend. Not the one that's dating Kenny, but my other one. Mind you, up until this point, he was like my best friend. Like, I loved the crap out of this kid. We had gone to school with each other for years. Like, I loved this kid. Honestly, there was a few times throughout our friendship that I really did feel like he was coming on to me and it was kind of creepy. So I just kind of passed it off as like, oh, you're crazy, Emily. Like, he's not doing that. I was so young. I didn't think that someone who is literally dating my best friend would ever try to like get at me or be creepy. Everyone knows I'm greened out. Like, everyone's worried about me. They're kind of just like, oh my God, is she ever going to be like a human again, or is her brain gonna stop? They decide that they all want to go to 7-Eleven and they're like, Emily, do you want to walk with us to 7-Eleven? I'm like, no, like I'm not getting up. Mind you, I barely can speak, barely can move. Like, you know what it's like. If you know, you know. If you don't, you don't. For whatever reason, Kenny also is like, I'm gonna stay back with her. Like, I want to make sure she's okay. And in my head, I'm like, please don't, please don't, please don't. I can't get the words out. Like I couldn't say like, please don't stay with me. I want to be alone. Our friends leave and he literally rolls over and starts like rubbing up on me. Like literally, like I don't even really want to go into depths, but like rubbing up on me. My like zoinked ass brain is like, roll over and you'll be fine. Like roll over. I think he took this as an opportunity, but I finally can get words out of my mouth and then I say my best friend's name and he just like stops in his tracks and is all freaked out. He stops and goes to sleep and I think he was embarrassed. And then the next day he texts me like, thank you for such a nice night. Huh? Huh? So I finally get the courage to tell my friend because I was honestly really scared to tell her because I didn't want her to think like I was like entertaining it at all. And he tells her that I was coming on to him and basically tries ruining our friendship. We ended up working it out, but it was really like frustrating because men are trash. Like, you're actually fucking trash. All the story, he's cheated on every single girlfriend he's ever had in his whole life and will never stop. That's like a continuous thing for people from my hometown. Like, everyone is trash.
Am I the asshole for showing my nieces and nephew Polar Express? Throwaway because I don't really use Reddit much. This was my husband's idea. I, female 29, babysat my nieces and nephew, male 4, female 6, and female 7, the day before Christmas Eve so that my brother and his wife could go to a nice dinner. They left around 6 p.m., so all I had to do was watch a movie with the kids and then put them to bed. I decided to watch Polar Express with them. All went well. They were very excited about the movie, but I figured that was just kids being excited. Fast forward to Christmas. I got a frantic call from my brother yelling at me for showing the kids that movie. I didn't know this, but apparently there is a set of train tracks that run behind their house about 200 yards back. And on Christmas Eve, my nieces had snuck out of bed and walked out to them to wait for the Polar Express. My brother put them to bed around 10 and found them at 6 a.m. unwrapping presents under the tree. He realized they'd been outside because their coats and boots were strewn about the hallway and their faces were pink from having been out in the cold. They don't know how long the kids were out there. Doctor estimated about 1.5 hours and took them to the ER because my younger niece's lips were blue and she was stumbling, where they found out that my younger niece had, thankfully mild, hypothermia. My brother is beyond angry at me. He says I'm irresponsible and an awful babysitter, and that I should have explained to them that Polar Express isn't real. The girls could have gotten seriously injured or killed, and he completely blames me. He refused to bring the kids to my parents' house for Christmas, which really upset my parents. He's refusing to speak to me and says he's never going to let me see the kids again since I'm irresponsible and could have gotten them killed. I feel really awful about it, but at the same time, I really don't think it's my fault. They've recently moved to this house and I've never visited before Christmas Eve since I live in the city and they're about 2 hours away. So I've never seen the house in daylight and I had no idea there were train tracks near it. It never occurred to me to say that the movie wasn't real. All the kids still believe in Santa, so I didn't think there was any harm in showing them a Christmas movie. I've gotten mixed reactions from people. My husband says it's not my fault and it's completely on them, as does my father and sister. But my brother and my mom think I'm the worst person in the world. I feel really awful and don't know what to do. Am I the asshole, Reddit? Hey, we have a follower submission here, and you can submit your own story at reddit-saidit.com. This one goes like this. Am I the chocolate starfish for not showing my mom my engagement ring? My fiance proposed at a New Year's Eve party at a dear friend's house. Since there were people right there wanting to celebrate with us, we felt uncomfortable stepping away to call a bunch of people to announce the engagement, so we sent our parents a picture. However, we waited until the next day to tell my elderly paternal grandma in person. I kept texting my mom all week to try to make plans to see her and also inviting her to be a part of the wedding-related activities such as dress shopping. She always replied with one-worded cold answers, so I finally asked if she was upset and she said she was due to how we told her. She tried guilt-tripping us by saying, "You say you love me, but I didn't even get a phone call or an in-person visit." I apologized and we moved on. Fast forward a few days to the only day in the week I let her know would work for both of our schedules, and I texted to ask if she wanted to meet up. When she said no, I asked if she was upset. She said yes, because it had been 9 days since my engagement and she still hadn't seen the ring, and most girls would be so excited to show their mom, and told me she was disappointed in me as a daughter and that someone else could go dress shopping because she's obviously not a priority to her. My fiance and I went over there to talk it out with her, and it turned into a huge family blowout where my dad and brother backed her up, saying I was the one being selfish and childish. The conversation ended with them all telling me to lose their number and they never wanted to see me again. Am I the asshole?